Gracie Jiu-Jitsu rocks. Welcome to the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Rocks podcast, a podcast dedicated to Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and all things Gracie, including self-defense, competition, anti-bullying, women's self-defense and empowerment, nutrition, and most especially, the people involved in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. This podcast is for the average Joe. It's for anyone who practices, trains, teaches, or just loves to talk about or hear about Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. We'll explore the lives of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu practitioners, how they got involved in the art, and what effect it's had on their lives. So buckle up and enjoy the ride. Welcome to episode 9 of the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Rocks podcast. I'm your host, Marty Josie, and thanks for listening. Today I'm going to start off by sharing some of the listener feedback, some of the comments posted on the website and on iTunes. And then I'm going to move on to the interview with today's guest, which is with John Carter of Carter's Academy of Self-Defense. And then finally, on the Make an Impact, Make a Difference segment, I'm going to be doing something different today and on some future episodes. We're going to have some guests come in to do that segment. I just think that's a good way to involve more people from the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu community in the podcast. And it's a way to feature some of the people before I can get to an actual full-length interview with them. I'll still be doing some of those episodes as well because I love doing that. But again, just thought it'd be great to include some others as well. Okay, so here are some of the comments posted so far. First one is from Tina Doscoach. I hope I'm saying that name correctly. If I'm not, my apologies. And it's a big thank you to Chris Rattay for bringing Gracie Jiu-Jitsu to Timmins. He is such an inspiration and positive role model for my son, who is lucky to have Chris as an instructor. Chris's energy and happiness is contagious. His students are very enthralled by his teaching methods and enthusiasm. He is an integral part of my son's childhood, and I will forever be thankful for the way he imparts his passion. That's awesome. The next one's from John Kogas. Great insight from Chris. Thanks, Marty, for your hard work with these podcasts. We know who's keeping it real in North Carolina. Here's one from Jeffrey Howard, and this is about episode 5 with Victor. Fun listen. I remember Victor as the guy who sold me a magnet that came with a Gracie diet book. His words, not mine. It's great to hear the stories of Jiu-Jitsu brothers and to learn from their experience. Tell him thanks for sharing, and he did a great job. You too, Marty. Another one from John K. Marty, I just want to thank you for doing this podcast. It is exactly what was needed for those of us who love Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, particularly here in North Carolina. Like so many others, we are addicted to this art. This provides just one more way for us to get our fix when we can't get on the mat. Keep up the great work. All right, the next one is from Michael, and this is related to episode 3 with Mozzie. Hey, Daddy. Best interview yet in terms of content and length. Enjoyed Mozzie's quote-unquote awakening as to what was missing in his game, Jiu-Jitsu. The podcast may be for the average Joes, yet all of these gentlemen are far from average when it comes to the art. This one's also from Michael, related to Ty Gay's episode. Gay's journey is an interesting one. I knew there was some unknown reason I enjoyed tool so much. Does Maynard roll? From the website is the intro sounds like the voice of God coming through my speakers. Well organized, interesting info, and crisp sound quality. The interview included many thought-provoking questions and genuine answers, and this is related to episode 1 with Bill Odom. Well done. Look forward to the rest. Okay, let's do one from iTunes now. By the way, if you ever go on iTunes and it doesn't give you descriptions, if it doesn't start with a description of the podcast and then the episodes with a description of those, because it's kind of funky when you click on it. Depending on how you get there, it shows one page or another. If you don't see what I'm describing, click on the logo itself, and it'll actually bring forth this other page, and you'll see where you can do ratings and reviews. Okay, this is from Crew Eric. What Marty has done here is put together a podcast that shows the essence of what we all love about Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, the camaraderie, the lifestyle, and the culture of training and rolling that has become such a huge part of our lives. There is nothing better than putting on a gi and getting on the mat with like-minded people and unlocking your potential. I look forward to every new episode. So thank you guys for all the feedback, the kind words. I appreciate you taking the time out of your lives to post a comment. Really do appreciate it. If you haven't posted one, I encourage you to do so. I always enjoy the feedback, and don't forget to rate the podcast on iTunes as well. Okay, let's move on to our interview for today and meet John Carter of Carter's Academy of Self-Defense. Okay, my guest today is John Carter, and John's the owner and head instructor of Carter's Academy of Self-Defense, and that's in Lexington, South Carolina. Is that right, John?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, welcome.
Well, thanks for having me, and I'm excited about this podcast, and always enjoyed listening to what you guys are doing, and look forward to speaking with you today.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate your time. I met you close to 3 years ago out at the Gracie Academy, going through the ICP, and you've always struck me as just a really genuine, great guy, and certainly a great addition to the Gracie extended family, so to speak. So John, let's just start with your journey as a martial artist. You know, how that started, where it went, and how it got you where you are today.
Okay. Well, let's see. I started martial arts training back when I was 14 years old. I grew up in a town in the upstate of South Carolina called Spartanburg, and I was into sports and athletics, baseball and swim team, and I was getting ready to start high school, and so the summer before high school, I thought it might be good to get a little self-defense, to be able to handle myself, going to a big high school. And since I enjoyed sports and physical athletics and things, I thought martial arts would be a good add-on to my overall, routine and activity. So we started looking around, and I think there was like 3 schools at the time in our town. There was like a karate school and a taekwondo school. And then there was an Aikido school, and that's different and unique than what you see on every corner when you ride up and down the road. And my instructor's son is my age, and all I knew was his dad taught martial arts. And so we went up and checked out a class and saw, people throwing people to the ground and putting joint locks on people. And I was immediately, impressed and excited. So we picked out a schedule and signed up that week, and that was about 28 years ago. So I've been doing martial arts for a while now, and along that journey, Aikido has been my main martial art all those years, but along that journey, I've always seen value in cross training, and looking at, Aikido doesn't really teach a lot of strikes, so I always looked at some striking arts, specifically an Okinawan Kempo system that I've been training in. And then the big thing with Aikido is it doesn't really engage on the ground. So we do lots of throws and that kind of thing to the ground, but don't really engage a lot in the ground. So that's where I started looking a little bit more in the grappling area. And of course, the early UFCs were very eye-opening, seeing Hoist Gracie do his thing. So my martial arts instructor, my Aikido instructor down in Florida, his son had been training, actually driving to Orlando, Florida, to from Tampa actually, to train at one of the only Gracie schools. This was back in the 90s. And so I was introduced to Gracie Jiu-Jitsu back in, like late 97 or something like that, and was very impressed and just learned the guard and how to use it. And I was just, just so impressed with it. I wanted to definitely get involved in it. And then finally, a friend of mine moved up here from Miami. He was a Valente Brothers Jiu-Jitsu guy, and I think he was a brown belt at the time. He moved up and to Columbia area, which is the metropolitan area of Lexington, South Carolina. And he and I began to train together, and so I started to add Gracie Jiu-Jitsu on to my training regimen, and then it got more and more. And then that's kind of where I get to today, with still doing my Aikido full time, and then bringing Gracie Jiu-Jitsu on as well full time. And that's kind of my 28-year career so far, and looking forward to learning more and getting more involved in the Gracie program, and teaching my guys and learning from the Gracie family themselves, and moving forward. So.
Absolutely. And it sounds like it's been quite a journey so far.
Yeah.
Do you remember who the Gracie person was in Orlando that your
I don't.
son was going to?
I don't. He was. I might be able to find that out, but it was. It just was one of those things where I know his son was going over and taking some introduction Gracie classes, and
yeah.
I didn't even think to ask who he was training with, because I saw the technique,
Sure,
and I was like, hey, let me learn some of that, and they were bringing it back, so I didn't really inquire too much.
Well, the reason I asked was my introduction was way back in '96 as well, and I drove down from Northwest Florida to a week-long seminar with Hickson Gracie, and one of the schools in the Orlando area was sponsoring it. So, and I don't remember the name. I was going to give them a shout out, but I don't remember the name, so that's why I asked, just to see if you might know. But let's talk a little bit about Aikido for a moment, and it as an art. I remember when pretty much the day that I saw Steven Seagal in his first movie. I'm sure you chuckle. I'm sure you hear this all the time, but it certainly had a big impact on a lot of people as far as introduction to Aikido. But I remember the first few minutes of the movie Above the Law, I was like, holy crap, that is good stuff. And I went on kind of a quest. I wanted to find an Aikido school, and at the time I had got married to a previous wife. This was years ago, and she was a Russian linguist in the Air Force, and so we went over to Japan. And when I went over there, I was like, man, I got to find an Aikido school, got to find one. And I searched, and on base they had, Taekwondo, they had Kung Fu. Off base, I found Shotokan, and I just could not find an Aikido school. And then about a month, I was there about 7 months. About a month before I was scheduled to leave, I finally found one. And so I didn't get to do too much. I didn't feel like it would be good to, or worth getting involved for a month. But I got to watch several classes, and it was pretty cool indeed. So I treasure that experience.
Yeah. The thing about Aikido is, I did start in 1986. So this was like 2 or 3 years, I think, before Steven Seagal's Above the Law came out. Yeah. So I had been practicing Aikido for 2 or 3 years, and I had the same experience. A lot of people, when they first saw it, they saw it on the big screen at that opening sequence when he's basically just trashing the attackers, you know.
Right.
And so I went to the school when I first saw it. I was like, well, you know, karate. You know, so I kind of saw the Karate Kid, you know, and I was like, yeah, punching and kicking, that's great. I like striking, but you know, I'm not a big guy. I'm not a strong guy. So I was like, I need more. You know, I need to be able to do more with some skill and some knowledge. And so I was that impressed when I watched, you know, the first class, you know, and then a couple years later it hit the big screen, and it's funny. And when that happened, we had a huge influx of people.
Oh, I'm sure.
coming to our
I'm
dojo.
sure.
They're like, oh, Steven Seagal, I want to learn how to do that. And then, you know, they're like, they have no idea, you know, what it takes to be able to train in that way so that you don't get hurt.
Yeah.
And so after a couple of quick wrist locks and stuff, you know, a lot of the guys are like, oh, got it. Let's move on to something else. But we did have a huge influx of people coming into the dojo in 1989 and 90, and wanting to, you know, learn what we had been doing, and it was pretty cool. And we brought a lot of guys in, and a lot of good guys, and helped them out and taught them how to do throws and joint locks and all that kind of thing. But you know, it's got a great approach to self-defense where, you know, your main objective is not to fight the attacker with strength and force and power. It's so similar to Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. That's why I was so drawn to Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, is because, you know, that's how I've always been brought up in martial arts.
Right.
With Aikido is, you know, I have never been taught to try to knock someone out or in the fight with one move. You know, I've always been taught to use control and joint locks and leverage and use the attacker's momentum against them, never fight force on force. You know, so we've always had to know, you know, how the body works and why the joint locks work. And so it was great. You know, it was an easy, you know, not even a transition for me really, because there's no real conflict between Aikido and Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. There's a bit more movement, if you will, meaning Aikido historically was a battlefield martial art with the Japanese samurai. So when you're on a battlefield with swords and horses and bow and arrows and people in a big, you know, fight, basically, you have to be able to move and blend and circle, and that's why the movement is there, and that's also why there was not a lot of ground fighting, you know, because on a battlefield you had, you know, basically you had to take care of your one opponent and move on. And then the other thing historically with Aikido is a lot of guys that started Aikido had already had a lot of martial art background. In fact, many people had to get a letter of introduction from their martial arts instructor to even be able to train with O-sensei or Moriyaru Ueshiba, the main proponent of Aikido. So they were coming from judo backgrounds and Japanese jiu-jitsu backgrounds. So all these guys knew ground fighting. They knew how to, you know, how to grapple and do their chokes and stuff on the ground. So they were coming to Aikido for a unique experience.
And didn't he? I don't even want to, the founder. I'm not even going to try his name.
O-sensei, his great teacher.
O-sensei, that's it.
Yeah.
And didn't he have a strong background in the classical samurai type jiu-jitsu before starting Aikido?
He actually had an instructor license to transmission the art of Daito-ryu Aiki Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay.
So, and that was the samurai art. So that's what they learned. And of course, the samurai, their business was warfare. So they wanted to know, they had to know everything: weapons, hand-to-hand chokes, strangles, takedowns, throws, you know, you name it. They needed to know everything. And I'm sure ground was a part of that curriculum, but he kind of went a different way and focused more on the stand-up portion. But yes, he his original certificates that he gave to students had Aiki Jiu-Jitsu on them, and then later he changed the name to Aiki Budo, which is more of the warrior way, and then he took out the warrior part. Bu means warrior, and he took out that, and he just brought it to Aikido, more of a way of life. And and kept the self-defense piece in as well. So
Great, great. Um, I haven't actually done Aikido, but I am a big fan of its philosophy, and I have several books on the philosophy. I'm just going to throw a few out there if you see if you are familiar. There's George Leonard is the first, and the book's Mastery.
yes, definitely.
Yep, yep. He's I think he's written extensively on that. Very cool. And then Richard Strauss Heckler, In Search of the Warrior Spirit, is the book.
I believe I have. I don't know if I've read that one in a while. I've read most, or have breezed through most books related to Aikido somehow.
Yeah.
I believe that one's on my shelf in the office. I'm not 100% familiar with that one though.
I really enjoyed that one because, it's the guy was hired by the Army Special Forces to teach the Green Berets mindfulness-based and awareness disciplines, and it went so counterproductive or counterintuitive to what they were used to. Denying the elements, denying their feelings,
Right.
the cold, the elements, and all that, and to do the exact opposite was quite an interesting process, but had great results. So anyway,
and that one's got like a
green.
That's got like a green jacket on it, right? Like it's a green. I think I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yep.
I just didn't recognize the author's name, but yeah, that book was a great book. And there's another one. I'll shoot you the information. It's called Aikido and Ground Fighting. So it's very interesting now that the Aikido community is finally starting to catch up with reality, and and not denying the fact that you may move great and be aware and manage distance and all this good stuff, but a lot of people are finally deciding that they're not always going to be able to stay on their feet, and so it's very interesting that a lot of and he's I think the guy that authored it's a pretty big high rank guy in the Aikido world, and it's probably sending some waves out because a lot of Aikido people do not like to go to the ground and kind of stick their head in the sand a little bit. So I'm one of the few guys that's like, hey, I'm embracing that area of self-defense, but I'll definitely shoot you the information on that one. You'll like that book. So.
Wonderful. Well, I do applaud your your openness to that, and because just like with whether you're talking about karate or anything, lots of arts were slow to embrace the ground, and they're like, I don't need to worry about the ground because I'm not going to the ground. But you never know. If someone could take you down, or maybe you even slip on a rock or whatever, and you may end up on the ground. So it's always good to kind of cover all the bases. That brings me to since you teach two grappling-based arts. How does Aikido and Gracie Jiu-Jitsu complement each other, and do most of your students take both, or do they choose one or the other?
Right. The cool thing about Aikido, and specifically our style of Aikido, there's many different styles of Aikido, just like there's different styles of karate. Our particular system of Aikido is called Nihon Goshin Aikido. And it's kind of a little bit of an offshoot from the mainline systems of Aikido, in that it has always been first and foremost a self-defense system, and then the way of life and your philosophy and all that comes in, as you train. So it has always been a very effective stand-up self-defense system. I would even say it's closer to a Japanese jiu-jitsu stand-up self-defense system, where we do lots of throws and good controlling techniques and this and that. But what I think we talked about earlier is once you throw the person to the ground, or you bring them to the ground with our Aikido system, there was very little, if any, component on the ground. So when you bring, like for example, the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Combatives program into my dojo from day one, there is zero conflict of interest in what we're doing. The strategy is exactly the same. So what happens is, basically it's just an easy transition right to the ground component, especially with the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Combatives program, the intro program for beginners. Basically any Aikido student can do any Aikido technique, and if they get pulled to the ground, or the person slips out of their hold or whatever and starts a ground struggle, the combative kicks in perfect. So it's a perfect complement one to the other. And even the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu stand-up curriculum, self-defense curriculum, is very close to the Aikido stand-up curriculum. So there's not any conflicts of technique or strategy or philosophy or approach, because they do use, and they're closely related and rooted back to the original art of Jiu-Jitsu anyway.
Right.
And so they both come out of the same roots. And so it's not like you're learning at my school a Taekwondo strategy and then you're doing Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, which is a little different approach. The approach to self-defense for Aikido and Jiu-Jitsu essentially is the same. Now, as far as students, I highly encourage every single one of my students that come through the door, if they want to sign up for Aikido, to also try out or take and enroll in the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu classes. So we probably are about a 60% of our student body, adults, do both arts, and almost, I would say almost 80% of the kids do both. The kids come in, they're like, hey, I can throw someone, cool. I can, get on the ground and roll and, control someone, cool. The kids will do whatever, sometimes the adults I've found, have a little hesitancy, getting pinned on the ground in the worst possible position, and and the closeness of the grappling on the ground,
Sure.
But once I find that I encourage them that they come in, they, like anyone else, they're going to love it. They're going to see the effectiveness of it. So we do have a pretty high percentage, a little over half of our adult students do both arts, and because they don't conflict one with another, it's not like they're trying to do a Taekwondo form and then learn a choke. It's basically
right.
Standing class and then grappling class, and it really flows nicely. So it's a real good little program we got going. So
excellent. So it sounds like you've really found a way to make them both work for you and tie it all together, and excellent. Did I read where you recently opened or are about to open a second location?
We did. We just opened a second location. We live in an interesting area. It's kind of wanting to go metropolitan, but it's still a kind of a sleepy town feel. So we kind of have little pockets of demographics. So the Lexington area that I've been in since 1999 at the place we're at we've just been a stable force of martial arts in that area for years. And because of our unique offering, there's not a lot of Aikido schools in our area. Of course, there's karate and Taekwondo all over, but there's just not a lot of Aikido programs. And then especially since we've brought Gracie Jiu-Jitsu in, we really attract people from all over our area. But I've noticed over the last few years that I've had a large group of people coming from one area of our city down here, and a lot of kids driving over from this location. So it's kind of the Irmo, Chapin area, which is kind of up near Lake Murray in our area. And so we've just identified a lot of people coming from that location. So what we did is we went ahead and partnered with one of our friends over there that has a karate school, and one of my instructors knows those folks really well. And so we went ahead and got some space and kind of split up costs and stuff to have the space. And so that just happened last month officially, and we've expanded classes, and new enrollments are already, kind of started to increase greatly. When we got a good location right up on Lake Murray Boulevard, which is a highly trafficked road, and so we got that going. That's very exciting. And right now we're doing Aikido over there for now. One of my friends that I still train with is a Valente Brothers black belt, and his school is out in that area. So
Nice.
pretty close to where he is. So we're going to focus on the Aikido right now.
Gotcha.
And those folks that maybe want to do a little cross training, they can drive, about 10 miles or so to the other location over in Lexington if they like. So.
Okay. Well, very good. Well, I salute you for your expansion and job well done. So
Yeah,
keep
thanks.
up the great work. So, what about your time off the mat, John? What do you do when you're not training? Do you have a favorite activity or hobby?
We I have 3 boys, and they are almost 9 and almost 5 and almost 3. So we have basically a 9 and a 5 and a 3-year-old. My wife works part time and actually at home some. She works from home as well. So usually in the mornings, I got the boys. So that's one of the things I enjoy doing is teaching them how to play baseball and doing stuff like scouts with them and taking them on hikes and teaching them camping stuff. And so that's one of the big things I enjoy doing is I get to since I do run a martial arts school full time, most of my afternoon and evenings is when I'm working. So I'm off and available during the day, and so I do a lot with the boys. We talked earlier about athletics and sports. So I do like to do a lot of stuff like that. But golf. Sorry, that was one of my little guys. Golf is one of the big things that I do like to do. But it's time consuming. So I've had to pull back a little bit from the golfing world. And but once the boys get a little bit older, I'm planning on getting back on that. So those are really the 2 big things: a little golf when I get a chance, and just raising those boys and teaching them, how to hopefully become good young men when they grow up.
Oh, wow. You've got your hands full with 3 little boys, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Or I can imagine. I've got 2 kids, and man, they keep me hopping, so I can imagine 3 boys. So, if you could train with anyone living or deceased, John, who would that be?
Yeah. Well, one of the people I can think of right offhand is the founder of our particular style of Aikido. His name was Shoto Morita, and he kind of was an old school Japanese instructor and had trained in Aiki Jiu-Jitsu and Judo and Jiu-Jitsu and karate, and just had a wealth of knowledge of information. And he lived in Hokkaido, Japan. And the interesting story with that is my teacher's teacher was in the military, and he was stationed in Japan. And he kind of like what you were doing. As soon as he went to Japan, he was looking for some that, and was able to train with him daily for
hang on,
years.
John.
And
hey,
that
John,
would be probably
I'm sorry, I lost your audio for or the voice from it. So go
Okay.
back to where he was living in Japan.
Yes.
Your old instructor. Go ahead.
Yeah. So when he was over in Japan, he was looking for an Aikido instructor, and ran across this man, and was able to train with him daily for a couple of years while he was stationed over there. And that's one of the first people I could think of that's deceased that I would like to be able to train with. And over the years, Bruce Lee, of course, has always been a martial arts influence of mine. Since I read his book and his philosophy of kind of absorbing what is useful and making it your own. So that's another person. And then of course, Grandmaster Helio Gracie, would love to have had the opportunity to train with him. So those are the 3 probably people that, if I had my wish, would be that I would have an opportunity to train with those guys. So.
Absolutely. Sounds like 3 great ones. All right. Do you follow the Gracie diet or any other specific nutritional program?
Well, I a partial Gracie diet follower, so I'm pretty close. But I do, I don't drink or smoke. And then I usually try to do smoothies, for a meal as often as I can, maybe one meal. And then I just do the best I can on the rest. I will say when I hosted some of the Gracies for some seminars, I did have a weekend where I followed the Gracie diet. So when those guys are around and we're like, I'm trying to help them do their diet,
Right, right.
I follow. I was like, you know what, I'm just going to hit it a whole weekend, and
Yeah.
it definitely takes work and effort, but I know your body is your temple, and it's good work and good effort. But I will say that that when I had the couple of the Gracie brothers down, I was able to follow the diet for one weekend.
And that's more than most of the people out there have done with it. So. All right. So, John, what's the most important thing or aspect of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu to you, and how's your life been positively affected by teaching or studying Gracie Jiu-Jitsu?
Yeah, probably. Martial arts to me, obviously is a way of life, but I really look to martial arts for self-defense. Really, that's my first and foremost thing with martial arts is I want it to be a practical, piece of physical self-defense in my life. So seeing and recognizing and acknowledging and accepting the fact that Aikido had some problems with the ground and the lack of ground knowledge, that is probably the huge thing with Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is that it has given me a well-rounded aspect of self-defense that a lot of my colleagues, are not able to experience. And I highly recommend and encourage anybody that I talk to that I know in the Aikido community to do some groundwork and learn some Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. So probably the most important thing that Gracie Jiu-Jitsu has brought to my life is the confidence and the knowledge that I've got the skill to deal with a bigger, stronger, angrier attacker if the fight goes to the ground. Now, as far as additional areas that it has or affected or improved my life, I very much enjoy learning. So one of the reasons I'm so attracted to martial arts is because you can constantly learn. You can always refine. You can learn more arts to open up areas of your own. So the fact that Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is a whole nother art form with thousands and thousands of techniques and intricate movements and great strategy, it has, given me a whole nother couple of decades of material to work through and learn and make my own. So it's kind of given me another couple of decades of challenge and area of learning and exploring. So I always enjoy that area of my training, and it's given a great spark to our programs down here in Lexington, and it's shown a lot of my students that they can still learn and they can still improve, and so it kind of keeps everybody nice and humble and keep the egos in check, and so those are some things that I'm glad for my discovery of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and the instructor certification program and becoming a certified training center. So it's really kind of helped us along and kind of moved us in a positive light. So.
Excellent. The first part of your answer reminded me of something Bill Odom said, speaking about kind of karate type arts, where having the knowledge of the groundwork has kind of given him a boost in the knowledge to use his original core art, because if you can have the freedom to use that core art, knowing that if you got taken down to the ground, you've got it handled. So yeah. It boosted his confidence in in the stand-up stuff as well. So it sounds like that kind of similar with the Aikido. It kind of gives you the freedom to really say, I'm going to definitely be able to use this, and if it gets to the ground, I've got that covered, so I don't even have to worry, and I can be free to even use the Aikido with even more confidence as well.
Right, and then a interesting story. I had one of my students has a couple of guys that he they train with together, at their house, and they're kind of off site of the academy. And he came and visited one of our classes. He was in an Aikido class with us, and he does a different style of Aikido, and then he also had about 10, 12 years of Wing Chun training, and they were doing a little open sparring, and he was using his Wing Chun striking, and my student was, trying to use his regular Aikido blending and movement, which doesn't work well against a good, trained, 10-year veteran of Wing Chun, because they're quick and tight, and their attacks aren't aren't overly committed and this kind of thing.
Right.
And he quickly realized that in order to get an Aikido lock or throw, he was going to have to use a Gracie Jiu-Jitsu clinch. He was going to have to either be all the way out or all the way in, which is the Gracie philosophy, and Aikido talks a lot about entering. And so he recognized the fact that all of those strikes, he couldn't handle all of it and try to catch something and do a throw. He needed to cover and clinch and shut down the striking, and then his Aikido or Jiu-Jitsu would kick in. And so, so that's another example, related to Bill Odom's of how there is no conflict between. That's why I love the way things are set up at our school. There's really no conflict between the two. They can interchange, and then if you got to bring it down to the ground, you got the tools to do it. So
absolutely. All right. So, do you have a favorite quote or motto that inspires you or that you live by?
Yes. One of my favorite quotes, and it's going to be funny if my students are listening to this later. I wonder how many are going to get this answer for me, but 'cause I say it all the time. One of my favorite quotes is "Move first, technique second," and what that means is, obviously that's martial arts related, but what that means to me is a lot of people, are trying to make the technique happen. They're trying to think of, how to bring them down and, do this arm lock or do this throw or do this or that, the other. And move first, technique second means the attacker does whatever, and you have to move and respond, according to what they're doing. If they're pulling, then you have to push. If they're pushing, you have to pull. And then one thing that Henner Gracie said that kind of blends into this statement is never be emotionally attached to the technique. So if you're just moving and not getting hit and you're responding to what the attacker is doing, and then the technique eventually will just present itself, whether it's standing or on the ground. And so that's one of my huge statements I say all the time at my academy, and my students are probably giggling if they're listening. Move first.
That's a great one.
Yeah, move first, technique second.
That's right. That's a good one. It's hard to be able to flow if you aren't moving, if you're over analyzing and kind of stuck thinking about a technique. So yeah, that's great. If you had one thing to tell someone who's considering starting Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, what would that be, John?
Let's see. Can I quote Nike and just say, just do it?
Absolutely.
I mean, I think a lot of people, are apprehensive when it comes to the ground. I can see it in their eyes sometimes. We put them on their back, we get, over top control position and start showing them how bad this is. And I think people get a little claustrophobic and they're off their feet. They're a little fish out of water, feeling. And I think if I could, just say, hey, let me show you this one technique. It'll just open your eyes on, even though this is not fun and this is not where you want to be, this technique can literally save your life. And so probably I would just say, just give it a try, just do it, and most likely you'll never look back.
Fantastic. Good advice. Okay. Anything else that you'd like to share with us today about anything?
No, just a general, wrap up that, I like the work that you're doing to, spread, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and our approach to teaching the system. And, I know a lot of the guys that, came up through our instructor certification program, have been interviewed, and, I appreciate what the Gracies are doing for us to help us get out there and start teaching the art and bringing it into our communities, and they give us a lot of support. And then like you said, we first met out in California at the instructor certification program, and like I recognize that you're a genuine guy also, and we both happen to be from the South, so I think we kind of connected that way as well. And but I appreciate you thinking of us down here and bringing us on the podcast, and I'm looking forward to this thing growing for you and getting out there and getting the word out. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it very much. And thanks so much for your time and allowing us as a whole, as a community, learn more about you and get to know you better. So thank you.
All right, Marty. Appreciate it. And we'll talk to you soon.
All right, John. Thanks.
All right. Thank you.
Bye. Okay, today's Make an Impact, Make a Difference segment is from Scotty Dennis of Triad Gracie Jiu-Jitsu in Archdale, North Carolina.
This is Scotty Dennis, Archdale, North Carolina. This is the Impact, Make an Impact segment. I have a quote from C.S. Lewis: "You're never too old to set another goal or to dream a new dream." When I think about that quote, it reminds me of myself, and it also reminds me of my mother. Don't ever think you're too old to do anything that you want to do, whether it's a goal, a dream, or anything in your life. My mother was 50-some years old, went back to college, got a degree, and got a job. And she is I was very impressed with her, willingness to do that. And I know that as well. 41 years old, and actually starting my own martial arts school. Most people start younger than that. So that's all I have to say is, no matter how old you are in your life, there's no dream that you can't conquer or any goal that you want to set. Age is just a number, and go for it.
And that's going to do it for episode 9 of the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Rocks podcast. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode. As always, if you enjoyed it, please go to iTunes, rate the show, leave a comment, and you can also leave a comment on the website if you are not on iTunes, and that website's www.graciejujitsurocks.com. Thanks so much for listening. I hope everybody's enjoying it, and until next time, I'll see you on the mat.